We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
Welcome to the DotCast from NineDots. NineDots is the online learning community for wedding photographers. You can become a member and find out about our annual conference, the NineDots Gathering, at nine-dots.co.
Hello, everybody. My name, as it's been since the day I was born, is Adam Johnson, and I'm joined today by my comrade, Andy Gaines. Hello, Andy.
Hey. Which has also been my name since I was born, except I started off as Andrew and then made a conscious decision in my late teenage years. I don't know why I did that, actually. Yeah, I'm like David Bowie, reinventing myself.
Yeah, I was going to go Nicky Six, but it's fine. What does your mum still call you Andrew, though?
Yep.
Oh,
and my wife. Yeah, everyone.
Oh.
All those people. Most people, to be fair, have always just called me Gaines.
Yeah.
That's just always in school. And yeah.
I've always called you Andy.
Have you?
Always. I have.
That's because I'd gone through my identity change and I'd reinvented my character before I met you.
Yeah. Your entire character hung on the dropping of letters from your first name.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh.
You can get a lot if you change REW to Y.
That's true, dude. It's true. How's it going anyway?
Good, thank you, mate. Good. Just at home in the office, taking a break from culling of weddings that I shot over Christmas to chat to your lovely self about all things photography today. Yeah,
I mean, it seems every time we speak, you're involved in some kind of wedding cull.
Yeah, that's because that's my job. And
well, true.
It takes a lot of my time. And also, if truth be told, since starting back work after Christmas, I've not been overly efficient at doing it. You know what it's like when the wedding arrives, when you start. And also, this is a 3-day wedding, an Indian wedding.
Oh, ouch.
So, yeah, it's like 20,000 images. So it's,
that's an ouch of a cull. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of been hard to stay focused. But I've done the first day.
Oh, excellent work.
The only way is up or whatever now. But
are you just going to crack on and get it finished? Or are you doing it in chunks?
I would like to have cracked on and get it finished, but here we are, chatting. So,
yeah, true.
It's nice to have a break.
And we've been chatting for a while before we just hit the start recording button, haven't we? So, what we're talking about is evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Evolution in general, the theory of humanity. No, it wasn't that. It was evolution as it relates to being a wedding photographer, which is it's not what Darwin had in mind.
I'm sure it was at the back of his mind when he wrote his incredible literature on the subject.
But no, what were we talking about? Where did we begin that discussion about evolution? We were talking about how I guess you begin being a wedding photographer, and you then get better, and you find your style, and your business becomes what it is, and then you continue trying to evolve, or you were saying kind of, do you reach a point where that evolution stops or stops becoming as important?
Yeah, I mean, it is like it's interesting though, because you want to, I guess, one of the things that we're promoting at NineDots and that everyone wants is they want to keep evolving, they want to keep learning. It's like a lifelong. We've talked about it in the previous. The process is all super important to have that and be constantly pushing and evolving and changing and moving with the times. But then I guess one question is how important is that from a business point of view, from a booking weddings point of view, because the people that are coming to book you to shoot their wedding, they don't really care whether what you're going to do for them is different to what it was a year ago, I guess. Like it doesn't matter to them if your style is different to what it was 10 years ago, or even if the industry style is different to what it was 10 years ago. I mean, the whole industry kind of changes in its trends and its fashions or whatever, which I suppose has some influence on maybe the people booking weddings, but really, perhaps it's not as important as we'd like to think it is.
Yeah.
Although sorry, mate.
No, I mean, I was just going to say, I think it's two different things. I think because I guess most of us. I mean, I know your backstory is that you got into this to make money. I know that's your big joke that everyone. I mean, but the root of it, you and me both got into it because it was a way to generate income. That was the first reason, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We both liked photography at that point, and then I think once you get into it, you become more into the artistic side of it. Once that once you realize it isn't about making money, I guess, and you get fulfillment from other areas, particularly the artistic side of what we're doing. You have to. That's the bit that really makes you happy. So I mean, we all enjoy having successful businesses, but if you were just going through the motions artistically week in week out, I think your business would suffer because of that.
Yeah, that's true. But at the same, yeah, I mean, I certainly feel like that. But then at the same, I mean, again, we talked about this on previous podcasts. Like one thing I've learned to really love as a process or as a kind of hobby, if you like, of the last couple of years has been really learning about the business element of stuff. So in a way, maybe it is possible to not worry too much about the finer points of the craft or the art, but to get the enjoyment from the creativity of business and the process of tweaking the business and working out how you can run a successful business like you would if you were just running, I don't know, a car parts shop, or whatever, or if you were running any kind of just generic business to make money. You can make the process of being successful in business can potentially be the fulfilling element of what you do. But then I guess the second question then is, if that is the case, are you doing a disservice as an artist to the couples who are working for you by disregarding the photography you're delivering for them?
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone disregards it, do they? But I mean, I think I definitely agree on the whole business side. I've always seen the business side of it from day one really as not a game, but I guess that the kind of working out what works and tweaking it and making the business almost as efficient as it can possibly be. I've always regarded that as a bit like a game of The Sims. Have you ever played The Sims?
No, mate, I'm not a big gamer.
Oh, well.
I think my 9-year-old daughter is quite into that game, I think.
Really? Well, it was around.
Might be a different, I don't know. They're all. Yeah.
It'll be like The Sims version 762 because I played The Sims in, I don't know, 99 or something, 2000.
Wedding photographer edition.
Yeah, but you had this person and you had to get him a job and then build him a house and all the rest of it.
Yeah,
And I've always seen businesses almost the same kind of building blocks of a game, really. Like everything you do, you just then that has to stay set in stone, and then you build something else on top of it that is a bit wobbly. So you take that off and you try something different. Mm-hmm. I've always seen it as a bit of a game, but I don't think
when you say game though, you don't mean like you've still got to. I mean, you've got to take it seriously to a certain extent, right?
I mean, used to take gaming very seriously, dude. You misunderstand me. No, I mean,
right.
No.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. No. Not a game as in it's frivolous and it doesn't matter if you die and then you just go and get a cup of tea. Like not that at all. But
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, a game in the sense that it's enjoyable. Like it's enjoyable improving and it's enjoyable getting better at it and it's enjoyable learning what works and what doesn't and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, not frivolous or anything else. And I've always taken it incredibly seriously because I've always really, almost from I think I was 3 years in when I became the only person that earns money in this household. So I have to take it pretty seriously, dude. But
yeah.
But I don't think. I don't think it's like if you're trying to be good at business, you get worse at photography or you take the attention off the photography. So I don't think it would ever be of a disservice to the client.
No, for sure. But that's what I was saying before. I guess is like that realization took me a while to kind of accept. I guess, interesting. Like just what you're saying about the whole game thing is. I mean, I do agree with you because I was chatting with Sonia and Simon from S2 from Nine Dots, who have just
lovely people, great people.
Yeah, awesome. And they've just both kind of gone full time, and they're obviously kind of slightly apprehensive about about that. And I was chatting with them a little bit, and similar thing. Like you have to be, all of that kind of business element and that just the whole way you run the business and everything behind the scenes and all the marketing and everything. Like you do have to try and. I guess there's an element of being slightly laid back about it or not being afraid to give stuff a go. And I guess approaching it you've got to be able to approach it in that try stuff and be willing to adapt and just roll with it and see what happens, which I guess for me is a bit more of like you're saying, like treating it like a game, rather than being rigid. This is how it's got to be. There's got to be an element of creativity or give things a go or try this. And if it doesn't work, no big deal. We'll try something else and just constantly evolving and rolling with the ever-changing landscape in which we work,
Oh, I like it.
And being able to do that is so important.
It is. I mean, the thing as well is what the reason I guess game is the wrong word to use, but I'm going to go with it. The reason is something that did work isn't going to always work. So the thing that thing you were doing, or that price you were charging, or the way you were doing your SEO, or that Facebook ad you were running, or whatever that wedding fair you've always gone to, those things aren't going to just work perpetually forever. So that's why the analogy of calling it a game comes in, really, because you've got to be aware when something's stopping working. But at the same time, you can't have had all your eggs in that basket until that point and just go, oh no, that thing isn't that. I think the only thing I rely on isn't working anymore. What am I going to do now?
It's weird because we've always talked when we taught at NineDots about how, I guess, and certainly when I teach workshops, that the goal really is to kind of not separate the work and the photography and the business, and to try and to keep them as one kind of evolving thing together, because obviously when the work is the business and the business becomes the work, and the images you make and how you make them and how you work with your clients feeds back into how you run your business, then that kind of cohesive thing starts to drive it forwards. But maybe there is an argument. I know we know a few photographers who have kind of almost deliberately stepped back from trying to push the envelope photographically, to know that they need to be comfortable with what they need to do to make their couples happy, and to do that without really stressing about evolving that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're happy to just, they know that they can do what they need to do and it will make their couples happy. And as a consequence, from a lifestyle point of view, that allows them to worry less about their photography. So there's probably an argument, and have a happier life because they're not stressing about constantly evolving as an artist. So,
True.
There's potentially an argument there, which means that, you don't need to stress too much about the art anyway.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. I mean, I think that's a bit of a risk when you hit that point, when you feel like your photography is enough and your clients are happy enough, and you don't need to push that side of it. But again, also, I think it's important for us to realize that, we're at this stage of our careers, me 10 years in, and you, what, 7, 8, 9 years in?
9, yeah, 8 or 9, I think. Yeah.
That's a very different place to be with your photography than a lot of the people in our community who have been shooting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Yeah. When I think at that point you're probably beginning to find who you are as a photographer. You're probably beginning to get there, or beginning to feel like you're getting there, technically maybe, or stylistically, or whatever it might be. At that point, evolution is still really important, I think, and still like being really willing to learn from different people with different styles and all the rest of it. I don't think, we're talking about this as people who, at the stage we're in, which, again, I don't feel like I'm anywhere near the finished article in business or photography, but we're at a very different stage mentally in our businesses and our photography than somebody who is on the way up into the industry. Somebody, for instance, I mean, Sonia and Simon have been shooting for quite a while, but obviously they've gone full time. Yeah. But they're going to be at a different point. And for instance, somebody like that who's just gone full time, if they took all their focus off the photography to purely focus on the business, I think it would be a risk. I think your photography still is, and always is, in my opinion, going to be important that your work stands out. So
yeah, for sure.
And I'm always working on that, and I know you've always been working on that. And yeah, maybe you've refocused a little bit on the business in the last couple of years, but you've always had a strong business. That's the thing. It's not like in those early years when you say you weren't focusing on your business. It's not like you had a weak business. It's not.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess. But I always deliberately avoided anything that I thought would purely advance my business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the gains I was looking to make, pardon the pun,
gains.
Yeah. All the gains I was looking to make were always artistic, creative, photographic ones, as opposed to, anything else.
Yeah, but I think at that point, and the point we started NineDots, which is what, 5 and a bit years ago now, is you understood that your work had to stand out to sell. Like that's a business connection that you'd made at that point.
Yeah.
And also you had understood and knew that your work had to be yours. Like you couldn't just go out and try and imitate, whoever your favorite photographer was, or try and make something that looked like the rest of the industry, because then that would be a bad business decision. So it's not like there's a lot of decisions I think that cross back and forward between business and the art side of what we do.
No, you're right, and I agree with that. And that's kind of exactly that brings it back to what I was saying, which is like the goal is to kind of marry them into one kind of homogeneous blob, isn't it? Because then,
is it though? I mean, no, it isn't for me. I mean, when I'm doing the photography bit of the job, all I am interested in at that point is making pictures, making the best possible pictures I can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean like when I'm taking the pictures, I'm thinking about how that's going to positively affect the bottom line as such.
You mean you've not started wearing the polo shirt with your mobile number across the back yet?
Not yet, dude. Maybe for 2021, I might bust those bad boys out.
I know you've ordered them.
Tax deductible. So I mean, you do the math. But no, I don't know. I think, yeah. I don't mean so much that your work that you're stressing about, the business is clouding the photography. It's just more that when those are all in sync, and they all kind of feed into each other in some way, the business side becomes a lot easier and the photography side becomes a lot easier. But crucially, I think selling the photography to couples becomes a lot easier. Because the business you're selling is the thing you're creating, and the reasons why you're making these pictures, and your why and my voice and all that kind of artistic stuff sells itself through the business because they're really aligned.
Yeah, I mean that's all they've always said. That's always been like a sales thing, hasn't it? Like two people could sell the exact same product and make the customer feel entirely differently about the exact same product.
Yeah, right.
And one could sell it for double the price of the other because of that. All that kind of stuff. But I mean, I guess what you were saying earlier about evolution is when does it? Yeah, I guess when does? I mean, this is the debate really, because there's two different arguments to be had. But when does focusing on evolving your craft and your art and your photography become like pointless to the business side of it? When does that effort that you put into getting better at being a photographer, taking pictures, when does that start to become superfluous to the business that you're trying to run? And I guess it just depends on the kind of person / photographer / business person you are, that whether you see it that way. I don't necessarily see it that way. I always want to get better at photography, regardless of the effects or otherwise that it has on the business.
But that is because that's because of your passion to make photography, though, right? I mean, if you were just doing it for a hobby, it's still everyone is always improving. I think that the hard thing, I mean, I would say the answer to that question is probably pretty early on, because at what point does the evolution of your photography actually reach a point where no one cares, and like I was saying, like if I'm evolving it, say my style is changing and evolving, the person that the inquiry the visit to my website that's going to happen later today, and the inquiry that's going to land in my inbox, they're not going to be aware. They're not going to book me because I've evolved from something different 6 years ago. They're going to book me because of what I'm showing them today.
Yeah.
But then the evolution of like how you evolve as a photographer again is something that interests me, because, and again, we talked about this in previous episodes, is like it's just a novelty thing, So the difference now, like you're saying, the position we're at, where we've shot for maybe 9 or 10 years, is there's very little that in wedding photography that not only that have we not seen, but now when you've been shooting long enough and kind of studying it long enough, like there's very little that you've seen that you don't know what it is. So I remember, when I started, the stuff that really appealed to me that I wanted to kind of aspire to do was the stuff I didn't even, not only did I not know I had not done it, but I couldn't always work out how it was done. It was things that were techniques that I was like, how do they do that? How do they make these images? How do they get it to look like that? How do they get their couples to do this? How do they get, to do that stuff that you couldn't do? Whereas now, when you've been shooting long enough, and with the information that's now out there on the internet, thanks in part to us, people like us at NineDots, is that the mystery of a lot of that has been removed. So it's not so much a case of how do you evolve? It's like, well, do I even want to evolve? Like, why would I want to? Once you know how you can make certain kinds of images or how you can shoot in a certain way, the desire almost to do that is being removed. It's like, well, I could do that if I wanted. So do I want to, or do I not want to? And once you know what, once you know when you can, once you know how to, then the decision of whether you want to becomes more important. And is the decision to want to do that justified in your business in any way? And I would say potentially not.
Yeah.
Not sure quite where that rant went, but yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about in that monologue, but I think it's a few things. First of all, you and me and Rahul especially, and I know a lot of people that are involved in NineDots thrive on learning new things.
Mm-hmm.
So in the early days when you're a photographer, obviously most of the things you're doing is you're either learning, you're either learning as you go, or you've just learned something new, or you've just learned how to do that thing that you didn't know how to do, or how to use that piece of equipment that you didn't know how to use. And then like you're saying, we talked about it in the first podcast, the whole novelty factor thing. Once you've learned all those basics and all those things, the general evolution of your work is going to get a lot slower. So there's this quick build in the first 2, 3, 4 years where everything is quite exciting because everything you're doing is new, or you're adding something new every week, or you're trying something new every week. And I can't remember if it was somebody that spoke at NineDots or what it is, but there's this analogy of the bouncing ball. You know, like when you bounce a ball, the first bounce is huge, and the second bounce is smaller, and the third bounce is smaller than that, and then eventually every little bounce is tiny,
teeny. Yeah.
And that's how that in anything really. That's how your progression is gonna go. The first couple of years are going to be these huge bounces, and after that, it's just going to be these small incremental bounces.
Mick Shah, who used to be in NineDots with us, who the photographer turned videographer. I mean, that was exactly what he said. Like, and that was the. Well, no, he didn't say that, but when he obviously used to shoot photography like we do, and switched to shooting video. But the reason was because it's for exactly that. Like the gains that you get in photography when you've been doing it long enough are so marginal.
Yeah.
If you try to teach yourself videography as a photographer, you know, it's like through the roof, the learning curve that you embark on. And it's like it's like an endorphin hit, you know. You go from knowing nothing to being able to do something, you know. The gains that you get are just monumental to start with. And there's an attraction to that, because if you enjoy that element of learning new stuff, then it's hard not to be that magpie that's always going after new things, you know, because that's where the enjoyment lies, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not doing him a disservice when I say that Mick thrives on those early bounces.
Mm-hmm.
In everything that he does, really. And I think I've learned. I mean, I thrived on those big bounces as well early in my career, and then got really disheartened when you feel like you've plateaued and
when they stop.
Yeah. And then I've learned, I guess, over that time to thrive on the process, like we've talked about before, to thrive on the fact that there are still these minute bounces happening. We are always improving, and everything's, even though it doesn't feel like it is in the same way that it did in years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everything is still moving forward as long as you are still pushing it in that direction.
Right.
And I think the risk, going back to what you were saying earlier about people who go, okay, happy with the work now. My clients are happy. You know, my pictures are fine. Once you hit that, let's call it a realization, and you stop pushing in that direction, then you'll either go stale or you'll move backwards. And in an industry like ours, which is, I think, moving quickly and evolving all the time, if you sit still, it doesn't take long to be left behind.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long, especially in this age of, like you're saying, of almost over education and overabundance of being able to go, oh, I want to learn how to do this. 2 minutes later, you've watched 52 YouTube videos on exactly that, and you know how to do it inside and out.
Yeah.
The speed in which people can go from novice to good and beyond is quicker than ever. So anybody that I think gets to our stage of their careers, even, which I'll still say is early-ish, and we go, oh, that's fine. Photography's fine. I'm going to leave that exactly where it is and just focus on the business, whatever. Then I think, however you're doing it, you've still got to be pushing that process forward.
Yeah, I couldn't agree entirely, like 100% with you there. And also, did I say I couldn't agree entirely? I meant I couldn't. I couldn't agree more. I agree with you entirely, 100%. Nice. But I think, sort of just to build on that, the other problem is once you feel like you've taken your foot off that gas, and you get that feeling that, hang on a minute, what was working before was working, but you haven't chosen to kind of keep your hand in, as it were, to keep it, you know, tweaking and evolving and moving. That if you don't do that, and when you realize that things have moved on, I think the difficulty, sounds a bit daft, but like the emotional difficulty of realizing you've maybe been left behind and you're not sure how to get back in. I think that is a super hard hurdle to overcome. And I think some of the photographers that maybe were around, maybe the generation before us, who are still shooting, the few that are still being successful, the older sort of photographers, even older than me, the ones that have done well are the ones that the ones that have done what we just said. But the ones that didn't became those bitter ones who could not get back in. They couldn't get the foot back in the door. Do you know what I mean? Like being able to get your foot back in the door once you feel like everything has moved on is super duper hard.
Yeah, some of that is ego and pride, though. I think a lot.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will feel too proud to, they maybe hit a point where they had some recognition or whatever it might be,
or just a successful business.
Yeah, and almost exists, slightly above the general industry because of whatever it might be.
Yeah,
and then dropping back in, your pride has to take a hit at that point.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, even people that didn't not named so much in the industry, I almost just mean like the general photographers. What I'm trying to say is like the idea that not only is it's important to keep changing and evolving and move with things and constantly be tweaking to kind of keep your head in the game, because I think if you move out and the game kind of moves ahead of you, to get back in feels really, really difficult.
Yeah.
If I just kind of switched off and disappeared for 2 years, if I came back, to try and learn, it's like trying to teach my mum Instagram. Do you know what I mean? or whatever. Like it's just impossible. You've got to kind of incrementally kind of move along with these things.
Definitely. Yeah. That's what I was saying really about the general evolution of this industry and the speed that's picked up with that in the last couple of years, especially. Going back to talking about standing out, knowing your work has to stand out. When I built my first couple of websites, there wasn't really branding wasn't really a thing for photographers back then at all. Like you had a slideshow that basically sat in a white page with some words. So your pictures.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, no, you did until about a year and a half ago. But no, that was it. I mean, branding just wasn't a thing back then, or it was, but not for most people. And WordPress wasn't really a thing, and website like sexy website themes were not a thing. So yeah, you just had this slideshow of pictures which sat in a white page with a few words on it, and everybody's website kind of looked like that. So your pictures were the thing that helped you stand out. Now, and I guess going back and agreeing with what you said earlier, going back to what you were saying is that slideshow now sits in a very well, for a lot of people, almost everyone, that sits in a very well branded, well put together, good copy, nice branding, thoughtful colors, good logos, everything that sits around those pictures now has become part of that differentiation, photographer to photographer. And that has definitely made the pictures less important than they were. Not less important, but that the importance of everything else has risen. So the general, I don't know, cauldron of importance has just changed. So you have to have as well as having your focus on the photography, and yeah, I definitely think that you have to constantly be pushing that forward. You have to have focus on the way that everything else looks and the way that everything else feels in relation to your business and your brand, not just the website, everything that didn't exist when I made my first couple of websites. So that's the tricky thing, and that's the thing that if you were to just turn the industry off and then turn it back on in 2 years, you wouldn't recognize it, guaranteed. Yeah, and you wouldn't know how to do half the things that people were doing, and it would take you just as long to try and learn those things if you hadn't been keeping up with everything and learning for the last couple of years.
Well, I mean, like again, there was the discussion in the NineDots group the other day. I mean, it's a whole topic in itself, really, about like the importance of the traditional website today. And there was different opinions on that, but I would say absolutely, it's less important than it once was. I think, I'm talking specifically about your website in as much as a few years ago, that was the only presence you had online.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Whereas now, I mean, we know people there's photographers who have not even got websites who are booking work because they've got great Instagram followings. They don't even have a website. So I guess it's a mixture of both, really. I appreciate what I've just said kind of contradicts what you just said, but
That's fine though.
yeah.
We like that. I mean, my view is that a website is the only thing you're in total control of.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that exists within your business and brand as a shop window, really, that you're in total control of.
Yeah, for sure.
Instagram could release a new version tomorrow, which looks totally different and works totally different and makes your pictures look totally different.
Yeah.
You're in control of your website, and also it's the only
yeah.
thing that's a constant, really. So I think in our time being photographers, we've seen Facebook come and go as something that was important. And maybe that conversation that happened in the NineDots group the other day about is a website important? If that had happened at the time when Facebook was booming and we'd all gone, yeah, Facebook's totally the best thing that's ever happened to photographers, so I'll just let my website go. You'd be in that position you're talking about, where 2 years later suddenly Facebook has died away as a powerful tool for photographers, and you're 2 years behind on your website. I'll never stop putting attention and time into my website because I just see it as a long game. Mm-hmm. And I think it'll always be there for you, like mentally, physically, emotionally. No, none of that. But
it's a shoulder to cry on.
Yeah, but going back, I mean, the biggest point I think is that is whatever. I mean, Instagram is powerful at the moment, but it's not. I don't know. It's hard for me because I've never really booked work from Instagram, and I know a lot of people really do. For me, my website is still my number one. And my one true love, and it still generates me a lot of, and I've always seen it as a long game. I've worked hard on SEO. I'm no SEO expert, but I've worked hard on SEO from the infancy of my business, and that is still paying off.
Yeah.
To this day.
I mean, again, it's just being. It's like we just said earlier on. It's being able to keep your finger on the pulse of what you're doing and on the pulse of what everyone else is doing. And also crucially to be just aware of what works and what doesn't work, like tracking the metrics, if you want, for want of a better word, so you personally, like, yourself and your business enough to know that right now you book more work through your website. Yeah. And that's how your business is built and is evolved and is currently still evolving. Whereas other people, it might not be the same. And for them currently, that Instagram thing or whatever, that resource of referrals is over there. And so for them, that's the way to go. And obviously, like we've always said, it is always going to be different. But I think the crucial thing is to kind of know yourself and know what you're doing and being able to objectively look at that, but also to just be aware that you've constantly got to be playing that game and following that process. For myself, I'm just going to go back onto Flickr now and update my Flickr profile.
I'm just going to do 500px.
Yeah, just going to tweak my Tumblr site and then.
But I mean, the reality is those probably. I mean, those things still exist, dude. Flickr and 500px and all these things, and they'll probably be working for some people.
Yeah.
in booking work, mate. I don't know, weddings maybe not, but those. I can't remember who somebody commented, I think, on, we got Lee Jeffries speaking at the NineDots Gathering this year.
Right.
And I think he began his rise to fame as a Flickr phenomenon.
Yeah. So many people did.
Yeah. I believe Ross Harvey did as well. Possibly. I didn't.
Me neither.
Mainly because I was terrible at photography in those days. But yeah, I mean, I just think, just to finish the section on the website thing, I know there was conflicting opinions in the group, and I'm just controversially going to say that somebody that has got a successful business and maybe has neglected their web. It's a strong word, but we'll go with it. Neglected their website for the last year or two, and everything's still working. It's quite easy at that point to go, oh, I don't need to do my website because I haven't been doing my website and it's all still working. It's only when things maybe start to get a little bit more difficult and start to crumble that you start going, oh, I've neglected my website and I need to do that. And we see that all the time. People going, oh, I need to blog. I've not blogged in 2 years. No, I'm not getting
true.
Whatever it is.
People, you only ever question what you're doing and not doing when whatever it is you're doing or not doing isn't working.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
So,
yeah.
So it's and often then, like, that's again. I mean, back to what I was saying. Like, once you get to that point, it's often it's you've left it a bit too late, and it's even harder then to catch back up. That's which is what I was trying to say a bit ago.
Because I mean, that's what goes back to really when I called it a game in the beginning of this when we were chatting before. I feel like this whole idea of concepts really of pushing the business forward. Like there's 1,000 different elements that need to be pushed forward. You need to push that bit a little bit today, and then tomorrow you need to push that bit a little bit, and then the next day you need to push that bit a little bit, and then that bit maybe needs another push. You know, there's a lot of things that need to be pushed forward. It's not like one big behemoth that needs to be pushed all at once. To keep the business moving forward, all these little things need to be. And I think over the years of being in this weird industry, in this weird business, more and more elements have come in that need to be pushed forward. You know,
it's just plate spinning though, isn't it? You know, you're just constantly trying to spin these plates, and some plates will come and go.
True. So many analogies we could drop, dude. I mean, we should do a podcast one day, and we'd speak only in analogies.
I think so.
I think it'd be great.
I'm there.
I mean, what was the original point we were trying to make? The original point we were trying to make is: does your photography have to keep evolving forever and ever and ever and ever, or do you reach a point where that evolution of your photography is of no gain in your business, and is that something you should be aware of?
I would say, well, yeah, and I think
yes. The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that's the thing, isn't it? And for me, it's my photography will continue to evolve, hopefully forever and ever, because I don't see it as relating to my business or whether my photography is good or not. My photography is good, and that's of a benefit to my clients, and I'll keep trying to make sure that photography is as good as it possibly can be for the clients that I've got. And hopefully the byproduct of that is that I'll end up with great pictures that keep improving for all of time, to keep pushing my portfolio forward and pushing my brand forward and pushing my reputation forward, so that I always get work.
Amen.
Yeah, we often finish these podcasts with an amen. Yeah.
The Church of Nine Dots.
Yeah. But yeah, do you agree? Do you agree with it? I mean, the amen suggests you do.
I do. Yeah, I do agree with that.
Oh, strong. So what are you going to do now? What are you going to go and push forward?
Update my Flickr profile.
Oh, nice. I'll see you on 500px.
Laters.
1, 2, 3. Listen.
You can listen to previous episodes of the Dotcast anywhere people normally listen to podcasts, and you can find out more about 9Dots membership and the 9Dots gathering at 9-dots.co.